What is the working life of a dog?
Every dog is really different. Most of the work dogs, they don't want to not go to work.
Yeah.
But they can be very clear and say, I don't want to sit in that witness box anymore either.
Whether you're looking for inspiration, guidance, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. This is Wisdom Stripes. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to take a moment to share something important. The views expressed by my guests are their own, and they may not necessarily reflect mine or those of this platform. My intention with every episode is to create a space where we can explore diverse perspectives, life experiences, and belief systems together. I truly believe that wisdom lives everywhere, and often we find it in the places we least expect, especially in those whose experiences and beliefs are very different from our own. Not every episode will challenge you, but some might, and that's okay. Growth often comes when we allow ourselves to step into discomfort and see the world through someone else's eyes. I also want to share something I heard recently from Oprah Winfrey that really struck a chord with me. She said at a commencement speech, "People all want to know one thing. Was that okay? Did you hear me? Do you see me? Did what I say mean anything to you?" My hope is that you will try to go out and have more face-to-face conversations with people you may disagree with, that you'll have the courage to look others in the eye and hear their point of view, and help make sure that the speed and distance and anonymity of our world doesn't cause us to lose our ability to stand in somebody else's shoes and recognize all that we share as a people. There has to be some way that this darkness can be banished with light. I couldn't agree more with those sentiments spoken by Oprah. These dialogues aren't always easy, but they are so important. My hope is that this episode and all the episodes I share will inspire you to listen a little more closely, reflect a little more deeply, and keep showing up for the conversations that matter most. Thank you for being here with me. It means so much to me that you're part of this journey. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Wisdom Stripes. My name is Meg Tuohey, and today's episode is one that you're not going to want to miss. It's all about the incredible connection between humans and animals, the power of service dogs, and how animals can teach us about love, patience, and trust. Now, we have two guests today, and I'm just going to introduce one of them, and then I'm going to do something unprecedented and hand over to my guest to introduce the second guest. Our first guest today is Linda Milanesi, the CEO and president of Assistance Dogs of the West, an organization that trains service dogs for people in need. Since 2006, Linda has dedicated her life to working with canines and transforming lives through the powerful bond between humans and dogs. From her start as an apprentice to becoming the executive director, Linda's journey has been deeply shaped by her love for animals and the life-changing impact they have on people's lives. Linda's role at ADW, the Assistance Dogs of the West, includes overseeing operations, advocacy, fundraising, and donor relations, ensuring that the organization continues its mission of providing service dogs to individuals who need them. Today, Linda will share her journey, the wisdom she's gained from working with dogs and people, and how she continues to lead with her heart and purpose. I'm thrilled to welcome Linda to today's episode. And Linda, won't you come and introduce our second guest?
Our second guest is one of the most exquisite, genius canines that I've ever met. And I've raised about 80 canines for Assistance Dogs of the West because I often have 4 dogs in training. This is Violet. She is a 4-year-old female, an English Labrador Retriever. And she is our crisis response canine, which I'll explain what that is a little later on, and also our Assistance Dogs of the West ambassador.
And right now, for those listening on the podcast, she's lying underneath my legs, and it is the most beautiful feeling. She just lay down and got really comfortable. And if you want to see her, you can check out my Instagram at Meg Tuohey Official. There'll be lots of pictures and images of her, and you'll see her working. And you can also watch us on YouTube if you want to see Violet do her thing a little bit later in the episode. And whilst we're talking in the episode and we go and do these, we'll have these experiences with Violet, we'll do our best to translate them to you so you know what's happening if you're listening at home. This is Wisdom Stripes, your no nonsense, fierce fairy godmothers, guiding you to find joy, connection, and purpose, and sharing the wisdom animals have to offer us all. Linda, we always start with the same question for our guests. What wisdom would you like a listener to come away with today?
One of the most life-fulfilling and deeply enriching things that a person can experience is to recognize the extraordinary intelligence and emotional capacity of canines. We underestimate how much they really understand our world, our inner world, our spiritual world, and the greater, larger world that we all participate in our collective energy. We often say at ADW, we have the dog angels that watch over us and guide us.
And when you say we have the dog angels that watch over us and guide us, what do you mean by that?
Those are the dogs that have gone before, and their presence in the spiritual realm is still very tangible if you have the acuity and the desire and the openness to receive what they have to tell you.
Do you feel like this is specifically in your work, or do you feel like the whole community or population also has access to this?
I feel that any person who has a desire and can let down the shields of what they think rather than what they're capable of perceiving can have an experience that is a lot larger than what many people think of companion animals, pet dogs, who are very, very valuable companions as we go through life.
Yes. Thank you. Let's talk about your bond or your heart for animals, for specifically dogs and specifically service dogs. Where did this come from, or how did this happen to be on your heart?
My I I have been with animals my entire life. Um, I had a brother who was bipolar before that was a diagnosis. And so while I had a really wonderful family, my mom and dad and my grandmother often lived with us, because of his mental disability, there was a lot of unusual circumstances that could happen. And so my refuge was to always be outside in nature and always be with my dogs and my animals. And so at a really early age, I had that bond with my animals because that was my refuge, a place to find peace when there was, unusual, uh, upsetting circumstances as a child, which were really hard to understand because people didn't know what was going on,
Mm.
you know, with people who had bipolar disorder.
And how did they support you?
Well, sometimes, so a few things. Sometimes I would lay outside. I grew up in a place where there were huge oak trees. And sometimes I would lay outside and listen to the wind in the top of the trees. And my dogs would be like by my side on the lounge chair. And sometimes I would watch them go through the nature. I actually was fortunate to be brought up in a very beautiful place. And my grandmother, who often lived with us, not full time, but often lived with us, was a really good gardener. So there were always beautiful gardens. And sometimes I would watch the dogs and I would pretend like I could be inside of them, perceiving the world, the natural world in the way that they did. And that was a really, soothing and peaceful way for me to have time.
Mm. So we're going to fast forward from there to 2006 when you started your journey or your work in the service dog arena. Can you talk to us about that?
I was a museum professional for many years. And when I first came to Santa Fe, I worked for the O'Keeffe Museum. And the person who took care of my dog during the day while I was at work, we became fast friends. And she invited me to CCA, which is a theater, for a fundraising event, which was called the Pet Monologues. And so there were 5 different people who gave the stories about their pets. One was a dog, one was a buffalo, Charlie the buffalo. One was a bird. And the last one was this young man who had been caught in an avalanche. And while he was freezing to death, he told the story of riding his Spanish Mustang. And at the end of it, he froze a lot of his digits and had many operations in order to, be as highly functional as he could be. And he was down at the plaza and saw our founder is Jill Felice, and she only had one assistant at the time, and that woman was walking a dog in the plaza, and he pulled up in his truck to say hello to her. And the dog, Abby, jumped through the driver's side window and sat on a seat next to him. And that became his service dog. And I turned to my friend and I said, I'm going to work for them someday. I had only been here 3 months. I was not a professional dog trainer. It was just a complete, non sequitur comment. So that was in 2001. After I left the O'Keeffe Museum, I did a lot of work for Desert Corral and Santa Fe Community Foundation. And one of the board chairmen took me out to lunch from Desert Corral and asked me what I was doing since I had left the O'Keeffe. And I told him, and I said, oh, but I still want to do something else. And he said, what's that? And I said, I want to work for Assistance Dogs of the West. And he said, well, do you know Caroline Clark Beadle, who was the executive director at that time? And I said, well, I don't know her, but I've been to every graduation since I'm here. He said, she's one of our best friends. She was with us on New Year's Eve. I'll call her. And so he did. That was a Friday. He did. She called me that afternoon and she interviewed me on Tuesday. And she said, well, you're not a dog trainer. You're not a teacher. We have a big education program. You're not a teacher. You're not a dog trainer. And I looked her square in the eye and I said, you want me to work for you. And so she said, well, I have to ask Jill, the founder. And I said, okay. And I said, but you really ought to have me on your board anyway, because I'm a senior management professional and I can help you. And so that did happen. And then Jill said, tell her she has to volunteer 2 days a week. And so that was like 1/3 of my earning power. I made grown-up money. And so I said yes. And I volunteered for a year to learn how to train the dogs and teach the kids. And so at the end of the year, they were having evaluations for the staff. And I said, well, I want you to evaluate me because I like to always know, like, where am I and set my next bar. And so Jill and Carolyn gave me an evaluation. And at the end of it, they said, well, we want you to jump in with both feet. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they said, well, we want to hire you. I said, okay. And so they hired me. And at the time, they hired me for like what I made when I was 14 years old. I mean, it was really a pittance, but it didn't matter.
No, it didn't matter.
And so I started with them 2 days a week. And then that was in 2006. I continued until 2012. Carolyn had a very serious health issue, and she gave 3 months notice, and she left in 2 weeks.
Very serious health issue.
Very serious. And so everybody quickly turned their heads towards me because I had been a director in museum field. And so I said, okay, well, I'll do this for like a couple months to get you back on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, you know, I want to train dogs and teach people. I don't want to deal with people anymore, personnel. And so that obviously is not what happened.
That is not what happened.
That is not what happened. And so I took over at that time. They were in very serious financial problems, which no one knew. And I held a retreat with all the staff, which was small, very small. There were like 5 people, including Jill and myself. And we restructured the whole way that the agency moved. And from there, we started to right the ship. I got a challenge grant from a foundation for $25,000 and raised $90,000 in a month and a half. And that started us on our way to a new path. And so we not only do service dogs, the way that you can understand what we do, because we made some very critical decisions, is 1 dog, 1 person. And those are our service dogs that help people with disabilities. Medical alert dogs, we do diabetic alert, seizure response. We work with veterans who have PTSD, traumatic brain injury. We work with families who have children who are on the autism spectrum. Anything that would give and provide a person greater independence in life. We don't look at a person's disability, we look at a person's ability.
Mm-hmm.
We work with a lot of licensed clinical social workers and occupational therapists so that we can figure out, like, what can you do and what would working with a professional canine, how could we broaden what you could do to live a more independent life? In 2010, like right before I took over, we started to hear this new tract with professional canines that started with an attorney and a veterinarian. And this attorney had a son who had cerebral palsy. So they had a fully trained service dog in their household. And when he would go to PT, she would take the dog to her office. And she had a young man who had a disability and had a serious crime had been committed against him. And of course, he was really nervous about testifying. And so she brought Skeeter in, that was the name of the dog, brought Skeeter in. And the man, he was a young man, like in his 20s, he was able to testify because of Skeeter.
Because of the companionship,
Yes.
the support.
Yes. And so the science behind that is our dog is at rest right now. We've been with dogs for 30,000 years. And so if a dog is at rest and everyone in this room feels safe, our blood pressure has lowered, our heart rate has lowered, our cortisol levels have lowered, that's your stress hormone, and our oxytocin levels have increased. And we actually know the scientist who did all this research. She's a very good friend of ours. Her name is Meg also. And so the Courthouse Dog Foundation, which was national, started to see that utilizing dogs in the investigation and prosecution of crime could be very beneficial. So Jill and I had a big conversation about that, and we decided that this was going to be an area where we were going to broaden our reach. And so we started placing courthouse dogs in 2010. We have 73 nationally now. They're in district attorney's offices, child advocacy centers, domestic violence shelters. They work with special victim advocates. We only work with professionals in the investigation and prosecution of crime. And they work in district attorney's offices, like I said, child advocacy centers, all in these special victims units, forensic interviews, SANE exams, which are sexual assault exams, deposition hearings. And then we trained the dogs to sit in the witness box with the special victims, who are usually children or elders or people with disabilities. And so that started to broaden our reach and to change. And so now we say one dog, one person, one dog, many persons. And so first is our courthouse facility dogs. Then the FBI 3 years later called us, and their director of special victim services for the headquarters saw a presentation about the canines, and they put out a request for proposals, and we were called to give a request for proposals for what is called a crisis response canine. So these dogs are also in the investigation and prosecution of crime, but they're on rapid deployment teams. So when a mass violence incident happens, like the Las Vegas concert shooting, the Pulse nightclub, just recently Uvalde, these dogs are on the rapid deployment team, and they work in the Family Assistance Center with a consortium of professionals who are there to provide services to the families and the people who have experienced these mass violence incidents. So we received the RFP, and we got the RFP, meaning we were the ones who were chosen, and we placed the first crisis response canines at FBI headquarters in 2014. So since then, we've been placing them all over the country. Violet and I have been deployed 3 times. And so people kind of ask, like, what's the difference? A crisis response canine compared to a courthouse facility dog. Courthouse facility dog likes to go to the office, likes to be with their team, likes to go to court, likes to do visitation, but really doesn't want to be out of their environments. Crisis response canine, I've flown this dog all over the place. We go into our hotel and we go to our room one time. And then the next time when we get off the elevator, I go, "Do you know where we live?" And she's like, "Yes, of course." And I don't tell her where we're going. And she makes a right out of the elevator and a left down the hallway and stops right in front of our door. So wherever the handler is, that's home. So that's a crisis response
It's
canine.
quite a different tone, isn't it? Both
Yeah.
very valuable, but quite different.
Very, very valuable. So as we went along, we also decided that we would start to place dogs with veterans. And we had a colleague, Jill Felice is a graduate of Bergen University. That's a service dog training university in California. We had a colleague who was from that same university. So we knew we had a commonality of language and a commonality of how we go through the world with our canines. And he was at Walter Reed and at the National Intrepid Center for Excellence. And so we decided, well, if we were going to start a veterans program, why didn't we go and talk to our colleague and see what they were doing at, the top facilities in the country? And would there be a way that we could have a formal partnership and do that kind of therapeutic modality with veterans? That's what happened in 2012, and we've had a formal MOU with, it's called the Warrior Canine Connection, which is a non-pharmaceutical therapeutic program where service members from all different combats learn to train the service dogs for other service members as part of this therapeutic intervention. Some of them get the dogs. Some of them train the dogs for their other veteran people who are with us, and it draws on the warrior ethos of no brother or no sister left behind. Anyhow, so that's how we started. It's called the Warrior Canine Connection. That's how we started our veterans program. We started it in Veterans Court, which was a restorative justice program where veterans convicted of crimes, instead of going to jail, served 2 years, and part of that module included community service. Training of the service dogs for other veterans became one of the modules that was available for community service. So then we got contacted by the captain of the fire department in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he worked on a mobile EMT unit where people who are repeated 911 callers because they don't know how to get services, they provided a consortium of care on this mobile EMT unit, and he asked if maybe we could have a dog on the unit.
That's a beautiful idea.
Yeah. So, so our dog Wrigley went to Albuquerque with Captain Gray, still there. We placed another dog with the chaplaincy program out of Bernalillo Fire Department. We placed another dog for the investigators and the detectives in the police department in Albuquerque. And we have another, these are called peer support dogs because they provide support for the first responders who are doing these jobs. And so we have another one who is in the district attorney's office for the investigators and detectives. We have, so I'm going to do a little aside over here. Jill and I both have a mindset where we try to say yes before we say no. And when people call us up and ask us if the dogs can do something, we tell them we'll go and ask the dogs because our dogs get to choose their careers and our dogs get to choose their people. And I'll explain what that means a little later on. Anyhow, we got a call from a police officer in Marietta, Georgia. And he said, I'm a police officer, and in the second part of my career, I've become a resource officer for 8 elementary schools. And we're like, Paul, what does that mean? And he said, well, children are afraid to come to school because they're afraid they're going to be shot, they're depressed, and they're suicidal. And we're like, elementary school? It was so stunning. And he said, I want to devote the second half of my career to these kids. And I think if I had a canine, I could really do a better job. And so a year and a half ago, Barney went to Lieutenant Hill and has been working in the schools, de-escalating all kinds of emotional dysregulation and helping children in 8 of the schools. So then we got calls from Flagstaff, and they have a restorative justice program for juveniles. Juvenile crime and punishment has a rather grisly history, and really very forward-thinking, amazing people are dismantling that system and creating amazing things. So in Flagstaff, our chief called us and they wanted to have a dog in dependency court, which is where if children have to go into foster care, they have to go to court. And also to work with the probation officers in the elementary and middle schools
Mm.
to try and keep kids out of juvenile detention. So, of course, we said yes. They have the most wonderful judges in the world, amazing people. And they have Violet's brother, Franklin, is their dog, is their courthouse dog. And then a Labradoodle, Blue, works with a gentleman who he's the head of this program out of the juvenile. It's called the Hope and Resiliency Center now. So I don't want to keep calling it juvenile detention because they flipped that on its ear.
Mm-hmm.
Tall guy, and he went to Arizona State University on a football scholarship, graduated, and now is the head of the whole, probationary department, which is where they're really putting that on its ear because they're providing so many resources for kids to stay out of juvenile detention, for families to get the counseling and the care that they need, for communities to understand that it is the community that will prevent violence and will heal violence that has already been done. And so they were also graduates last year. Barney was a graduate last year, and as was Franklin, and Blue is the other dog. So we kind of look at everything. And this day, 2 of our dogs are in Washington, D.C. So successor dogs, that one is going to go to the Dallas field office for the FBI, and one is going to go to the Atlanta field office for the FBI. And so they have to first work in headquarters and at Quantico, because when a mass violence incident happened, control is at headquarters. And I've worked at headquarters many times with Jill. It takes a half a day to teach a person how to take a dog through the entrance. There's 14,000 people in that building. So it's quite an environment to work in.
A certain personality or disposition of a dog, maybe too.
Yes. So both of these dogs that are there are going to be crisis response canines. So they have a very particular personality. They chose the bureau, and the people who were part of the selection chose really, really good handlers. They've been with us on 2 separate occasions interviewing. It's kind of like speed dating with dogs. So we look for lots of different things in terms of the interview process. And so these 2 handlers are really good. And they texted me this morning and said that everybody was doing really well. And then they'll fly off. They'll go to the Dallas field office and to the Atlanta field office at the end.
I can't help but reflect on the word service. And I think when I had heard of a service dog before, I understood at a level, the level of service that they provided: stability, comfort, care, guidance, general help. And I understood that as I listen much more deeply to your descriptions of the contribution that these dogs are making to humanity, it seems very selfless. And I have had all kinds of bodily sensations across this conversation. It is awe-inspiring, and I use that word really thoughtfully, to think about what they contribute and how openly they do so, how generous they are, and what ripples of impact they have. Without them, what would have happened?
It's totally changed the complexion of so many areas that are really, really tough. And part of what we do, our staff is very well educated in terms of these various areas where the dogs are working, because we feel that it's really important that they have an understanding of what that handler and that canine is going to be expected to do. Whenever there's a mass violence incident, one of the first calls is to us. And it's a combination of geography. Do we have any dogs in that area? And if not, who should be deployed? So there are certain placements throughout the country where we know those teams, those dogs are not only, say, a courthouse facility dog, but also a CRC. And so we work together with the Bureau. So when those things happen, it could be the Attorney General of the state is the lead. It could be the FBI is the lead. So it really depends. However, the dogs that get deployed, we always get called so that we can work as a team member to provide geography and capability, what dogs are available to go. And as I said, when those incidents happen, there's a family assistance center that gets established, and that's a consortium of professionals like the Red Cross, therapists, the people handling the dogs. At Uvalde, they did 33 forensic interviews with the children. They helped 800 family members. Because what would happen is the children would meet the dogs, and then they'd go home and tell their parents and their aunties, and then they would come for services, and then they would go home and they would tell the grandparents. And so the whole community was served at the Family Assistance Center because the dogs were the bridge to being able to get the services.
It's quite a responsibility, and I have Violet under my legs, and I can tell she's peacefully at work now. I can feel both of those paradigms at the same time. I wonder what it's like for them to do their work. Is it a load on them?
Absolutely. And so, for instance, in these long deployments, 10 days is a long time for a dog to have to live in a hotel. I mean, maybe if you were on vacation, it would be different, but not in these circumstances. And so, for instance, the Las Vegas shooting, I spoke to the teams 1 or 2 times a day. So there were 9 of the 11 dogs were our dogs. So we made teams that worked in the morning, and then those teams took a break for the rest, for rest, and then, another team would come in. There would be all kinds of, peculiar things. For instance, there was a Navy officer who loved Labradors, and he was in intensive care. And so the handler called and said, "There's wires, there's monitors, like, what do I do? I can't put the dog on the bed, but he really would like to see a dog." And I said, "Well, if there's an armchair, if we could get an armchair, we could put an armchair close to the bed, and you can do the cue is jump on, 4 letters, jump, 4 paws on something. And so you can have Wally do a jump on and have him put his head on the bed. It's another cue, visit. And then he can, his head will be accessible to his hand." So there were all kinds of things like that when this was first emerging. MGM, the vice president of MGM, asked us, they had 2,000 employees there. They asked if the dogs could go and provide support for the employees. So everything is, each moment is unique. But the dogs and the handlers provide a lot.
Hey there, Meg Tuohey here with a quick and exciting announcement. As a psychologist, coach, and founder of the Wisdom Lab, I've had the privilege of helping thousands of individuals break free from the vicious cycles holding them back and tap into their infinite inner wisdom. If you're tired of feeling unheard, unseen, and stuck in the same old struggles, the Wisdom Lab is the breakthrough you've been yearning for. This on-demand program guides you through a powerful process to shatter emotional barriers, overcome deep-rooted blocks, and experience the profound transformation you deserve. In just 4 hours, you'll gain the tools and insights to revolutionize your life from the inside out. Want to learn more? Click or tap the link in the show notes for all the details. Okay, now back to the episode. What is the working life of a dog?
Good question also. And I'm gonna do a little aside over here. One of our value propositions in our agency is we stay with the handler and the dog for the lifetime of the dog. So we are available for extra training. We're available for veterinary consultation. We have a great team of vets. And so if there's a veterinary issue, we have other people that can look at it. We talk about retirement, and every dog is really different. Most of the work dogs, they don't want to not go to work.
Yeah.
So, but they can be very clear and say, I don't want to sit in that witness box anymore either. And so they might be then greeter dogs, or they might be dogs that work in family visitation, still in the district attorney's office, but they don't want to go to the courtroom anymore. And so we work through with our handlers, we work through those age transitions. They work actively until they're like 8 or 9. And, they're very clear about what they want to continue to do. 6, 7, they're all about work. And then they start to show what they would like to continue to do and what they don't want to do anymore. And they're very clear about it.
So this is the second time we've sort of hinted at the way in which they communicate. The first is the job that they choose. The second is the handler that they choose, and maybe the handler chooses them too. And the third is the work that they do, and then maybe changing their rotation of work as they feel ready for. Could you talk to us about how the two or more people set up that communication with the dog and how that communication happens?
So, first we'll do careers. So I had this one golden retriever, and all of the dogs, we don't know what career they're going to choose. So they all learn basically 90 cues. And you might notice I don't use the word commands because we don't boss our dogs around. We work in partnership.
Invitation.
Yeah. So they learn all the mobility cues in case they go one dog, one person. So this particular dog, the trainers try assistive technology with all the dogs to see what they might want to do. And so they would use a walker, and he'd be at the end of his leash all the way out here with his head facing in the opposite direction. They would use a wheelchair, and he'd be at the end of his leash with his head facing in the opposite direction. It was very clear he did not want to be a mobility dog. This dog was one of our first courthouse facility dogs in Tucson, Arizona. He worked in the Child Advocacy Center. He helped thousands of children. He was so game for the job. They had all the necessary services in one building, which was really innovative and really great. So when the children would have to go for a medical exam, Russell would come out. They had a doctor's coat made for him.
Russell is your dog,
Russell was the dog,
and
yes.
he had a doctor's coat?
He had a doctor's coat on and a Fisher-Price doctor's bag, and he would come out with the doctor's bag and come out and greet the children. And then they could, they would open up the doctor's box, and they could listen to his heart, and they could look in his ears, and, there were a whole bunch of different things that they could do with Russell before they had to go in and go and have a medical exam.
Wow.
So he was like amazing. He was amazing. So very clear about their jobs. We also, when they're 10 weeks old, we do an assessment. Okay, I don't like to call it a test. We do an assessment, and the whole training room is set up with all different kinds of things. There's a scent sample. There's a big stuffy dog. There's cookie sheets. There's an animated toy that clicks on and sings a song. All different kinds of things. And the trainer who's doing the assessments, and the puppies are only 10 weeks old. They lead them through these various stations, and we observe. Do you walk around the cookie sheets and are very mindful about your body? Do you hit the scent sample right away? Do you sit in front of the person? The trainer sits with their back to the door when the puppy is let in. Do you sit in front of the trainer and you're, like, mesmerized by that? There's a fur hat that goes flying across the floor on a retractable leash. Do you go after that or do you stay with the trainer? All these things are clues. It's not good dog, bad dog.
No.
It's like if you hit the scent and you go flying after that hat, you might be a good medical alert dog because I want a dog that has drive and isn't going to quit. And so we look for all of those things first. And then as their training progresses, we start with various different things. The first dog that I ever took home was this little chocolate lab, Bonnie. She's chocolate lab with like almond colored eyes. She was so gorgeous. And so she would go into interviews. So people come and interview. And she would go into an interview and she would go, "Hi, Meg. I'll sit, I'll down, I'll stay. You're really boring." And she would put herself in a crate. And so then, Valerie would come at another time for an interview. "Hi, Valerie. I'll sit, I'll down, I'll stay. I'll even come for you. You're really boring." And she put herself in a crate. It was embarrassing, you know? And everybody thought she was so, so cute, but she was having none of it. And I would say, "Well, she's been in our school program. She's kind of tired. She wants to just rest." So then this little boy came in. He was 5. He came in with his dad. And he had a hearing deficit. He wasn't deaf, but he had a hearing deficit, so he had a funny cadence to his language, and he was on the autism spectrum. And so, her name was Bonnie, and he heard it as Pony, and so he would call her Pony, and, his language was, you know, funny. She thought he was so fascinating. She never left his side. She stayed in front of him. The dad, of course, became the handler because he was a little fellow. So the dad is a ski instructor for ski instructors, and they went away for the winter to Taos. And Bonnie, "Uh, yeah, hi, Peter. I'll sit for you. I'll down for you. You're really boring." Put herself in a crate. She was waiting for Liam. So they come back, and of course, Liam says, "I wonder if Pony's still there." And his dad said, "Well, we don't know because she's really quite a special dog and she might be gone." And so, of course, Bonnie was waiting for Liam. And so Bonnie became Liam's dog. When his dad came for client placement training, they came together, of course. His dad went to help Liam get dressed that morning, and Liam had dressed himself by himself for the first time in his life. And so Bonnie he was with Bonnie for, gosh, probably 12 years.
What do you think it was about Bonnie that had him dress himself?
He was so eager to see her again
I see.
and so eager to be with her.
Mm.
And during client placement training, we would often double leash her
Mm.
so that Liam felt like he was
Mm.
doing the cues with her,
Mm.
even though his dad was the real handler in public. Um, but Liam was engaged, and as he grew older, he did handle Bonnie,
Mm.
you know, because he used to come to our after-school program with her,
Mm.
and she loved him. She never took her eyes off of him.
That is a magical story.
So they do that quite often.
They choose.
They
And
choose.
they wait. So she obviously knew people. She was allowed to choose someone,
Yes.
and she was just like, "You're very nice, and no thank you." So she would go back to her crate. So I could have gone in, no thank you. Valerie, etc., until Liam came. And then she waited for him.
Yep.
On some level, she knew.
Yep.
And I guess on some level, he knew too.
I think so.
It seems that way.
Yeah. And they're very clear. So when people come to us and start to go through the interview process, it's kind of like speed dating. We take a very big, our application process is detailed. And then when people come for their first interview, we take a very detailed intake interview so that we can really understand what their needs are. And then they start to speed date with the dogs, because by that time we start to know the propensity of where the dogs, what might be engaging for them
Mhm.
in terms of their career, because they could interview with somebody who's like 10 months old, not our little puppies,
Mm.
but 10 months to a year and a half.
Okay. And where do the dogs live and where do they get trained before they find their forever homes?
So we breed our dogs. So people always ask us, why don't you use rescue dogs? Rescue dogs have a place in the world and in life. But for us, our first, uh, our first line is for health. So we breed first for health. We have a partnership with one of the top Labrador breeders in the country. She has 75, 80 years of genetic information, and we breed first for health. 50% of temperament is genetics.
Mm.
So we breed for a very specific temperament. And from that breeding registry and knowledge, we get all the different dogs that we've been talking about. Those dogs
Mm.
will appear.
Mhm.
The dogs are born at our puppy enrichment center. People always ask us, when do you start training the dogs? And we say when they're born, because they're born into human hands. And before their eyes or ears are open and they're still in the whelping box, there's towels that are rolled up underneath the whelping blankets. There's wooden spoon, measuring spoons, an empty plastic bottle, all different kinds of things that get rotated so that the dogs learn that the world isn't flat. From the time they're born, the world isn't flat, and there's all different kinds of novel experiences. As they go along, you can think of the first 16 weeks of a dog's brain is like the first 2 years of a child's brain. So all of those stimulations either get hardwired in or get pruned away.
Mhm.
And so at the Puppy Enrichment Center, you can rest your legs on her, she won't care. At the Puppy Enrichment Center, they are exposed to all kinds of novel experiences under the direction of first our neonatal
Mhm.
care team, and then, we have some of our trainers are the puppy trainers. By the time they're 5 weeks old, they sit and wait for their food. They're completely housebroken.
Mm.
So they're not fully vaccinated by then, but they go in we have a big cart, with fence sides, and so, at 10 weeks old, they go to a big box store with their little puppy vests on, not walking on the floor, but in the cart so that they get exposed to all different kinds of environments, And we have 120 volunteers. We have the most amazing volunteer corps. Some are neonatal volunteers. So, puppies are really vulnerable when they're first born, super vulnerable. So we have a neonatal team. We have puppy sitters because the puppies need 24-hour care when they're first born. And then we have what's called puppy raisers. And these are people that take the youth, not the puppies, not the little puppies, but the 10-month-olds. They take them and they have them live in their household. And it's kind of like having an elementary school kid. They drop the dogs off at 8:30 every morning, and they pick them up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they have to go to puppy raiser class. So they go, we start with novice, and then we have advanced. The people who are advanced puppy raisers, they actually get public access with the dogs. They have to go through a very specialized test. They have access, public access, so they can be vested. We have a formal partnership with our hospital here, and our volunteers take the dogs for peer support for the doctors and the nurses.
It's so beautiful.
Vi's one of the dogs that goes to the hospital.
Does she?
Not with me as her handler. She has one of our volunteers. So they all pass public access test in order to go there and to go to other places. Some even get to take them on safari. Like if they go on vacation, they get to take the youth on safari so they can go to national parks or, to go rafting or so yeah, they're very, very valuable to us. And they learn how to handle the dogs in a really professional manner. We're accredited by Assistance Dogs International, which is the highest accreditation in the world, international. And so we have to be accredited every 5 years. We've been accredited for 15 years. And they can look at everything from my first aid kits to interviewing my board chair and anything in between. Our last accreditation, which was 4 years ago, we were written up as the finest puppy enrichment in the country.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
My understanding, and this data might be old and incorrect, but my understanding is to raise a guide dog in Australia, it's about $80,000 a dog. Is that an equivalent over here for your types of dogs? Is it more? Is it less?
I just had our finance people do an actuary on it, and it's like $65,000.
Yeah. Yes.
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 And, you think some of the bite dogs that they import from Belgium, those dogs are in the 80,000
Yes.
range.
And perhaps my 80,000 is not quite right.
It probably is.
Could
It probably
be.
is.
It's reasonable maybe that it could be.
So, people don't understand the dogs get 1,500 to 2,000 hours of professional training, along with all the reinforcement that they get from the people who have them in their homes. That's why they have to come to puppy raiser class. This dog knows 90 cues. Each cue is associated with a behavior, a very specific behavior. And so you need to learn her language so that you can function as partners together.
So all your puppies, I want to call them babies then, all your dogs know 90 cues, and then you need to also teach all of the handlers and people that interact the 90 cues. So essentially you're a language center. Interesting. I love that.
Some of the mobility cues the volunteers might not necessarily know. For instance, if you can think about it, like if you're a person in a wheelchair, there would be many things that you couldn't do that an able-bodied person could do.
Yes.
Like you might not be able to bend over and put a collar on a dog.
Yes.
So there's a cue that's called foot, and they put their 2 feet on the foot pad of a wheelchair so that the dog's head is now up here and you can slip the collar on. There's a cue for putting your collar on, which is called dress. And the dog actually puts their head through instead of us having to push the collar on. The dog actually pushes their head through. Again, we don't know where the dogs are going to go, so they're all voice cued, and we try to minimize the amount of physicality.
I wonder why. No, I have a good question for you about Violet.
Okay.
Because there's a large number of dogs that pass through your life.
Yes.
Some might say thousands.
Well, certainly many hundreds, many hundreds. I've probably raised almost 100,
Okay,
but
just
then
you yourself.
there's 40 dogs in my daily life
Mhm.
at the training center every day.
So a lot of dogs is what we're establishing.
Yes, ma'am.
And yet you chose Violet and Violet chose you. How did you recognize each other?
I had Violet for 12 hours. I had her overnight, one night. And number one, even though she's resting and very quiet, she's a lot of dog. And I love that because I'm a lot of person.
Tell me what you mean by a lot of dog, because
She
just for those auditory people, she's underneath me. She's peaceful as a lamb. I can feel her presence, but she does seem to be at peace to me.
she's resting. She knows that what we're doing right now, this is her job. She knows that. If I change this, and we can do this if you want.
Yes.
I brought some things that she can show you.
Well, we'll do that, but I want to know why you chose her. So let's do that bit first.
Okay. So first of all, so she has a lot of energy. She's extremely athletic, like really marvelously athletic. I have a gate in between my kitchen and my dining room. That's how high are gates? Like 3 feet, maybe 3 feet. She just one day just decided to jump over it, and she clears it by 6, 7 inches from a complete standstill.
That is quite agile.
Yes. She's super intelligent, really intelligent, just one of the most amazingly cogent canines that I've ever been with. And she's not everybody's friend, okay? She's amenable.
Yes.
She knows how to be polite.
Yes.
But until she picks you, okay, she's not letting you into her inner world.
Okay, so now how do you know if she likes you and is not just being polite?
Okay, so when she goes to the hospital, everybody wants to fuss over her right away,
I bet.
and she doesn't like that. And everybody wants to pet the top of her head,
And she doesn't like that.
and she doesn't like that. Stay, Vi. Stay. So her handler at the hospital always says, she really loves to be pet on her chest, and people always go for her head. And she just immediately backs up. She's like, don't be petting my head. You're not my familiar, and I don't want you to pet my head. Like, she's clear.
Yes.
She's social in a nice way, but not overtly social, which is why she's a good crisis response canine.
Yes, because it's in and out.
A more social dog. We had one dog. We always say, like, she just wiggles her heart into your heart because she had so much body movement and she's so social. She went to Hobbs, New Mexico, and she's going to work with in juvenile detention. Okay, and so she'll be working with young youth who have gotten themselves in trouble, and she's so darling and so marvelous that you couldn't be grumpy to be around her. You couldn't, so their broken hearts will be healed because she's just amazing. This dog is not social like that.
No.
She chooses her people very carefully. She's done a lot being here with you. She's like, you're good. You're good.
I like
She
her.
knows that,
Yes.
because
Mm.
you see there's a distraction here, but she hasn't moved.
Mm.
Yes,
You did ask her not
I
to.
did ask her not to,
Mm.
but it's also because she feels very comfortable around you.
Mm. I did have a moment with her, but then I was like, did I have a moment or did I imagine it? And she was just polite, you
Mm-mm,
know?
mm-mm.
Yes,
No,
I did feel that
you
when she
did.
came in.
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
I liked her very much.
Yep.
Mm.
So those were some of the things, when I picked up her leash, you know, we call the leash a friendship bracelet. There's so much communication that comes down the leash.
Mm.
And when I picked up her leash, we had an immediate physicality of going through the world in a certain way
Mm.
that we're very much in sync that way.
Mm.
And so that was another aspect.
Mm.
I like that she's sharp and fast
Mm.
and precise. She's precise.
She is.
Hmm.
Okay.
Not that other qualities aren't very valuable. I had one dog that just went to his veteran that was like the most mellow dog in the world, and I just loved that about him.
Yes.
He was yummy.
Yes, but he wasn't your
Mhm.
dog.
No.
He was the veteran's dog.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're establishing here. You
Yeah.
just knew each other.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yep.
All right. Shall we see what she can do?
Yes.
Okay. So what's going to happen here? I've got her treats in this bag.
Mhm.
Okay.
And you can just put them on the table or put a
Okay.
couple in your hands.
All right. Oh,
So
we're pulling out a water bottle. I do have something, sweetie. Look. Do you want one? I know.
you can have one.
Wait, there you are, baby. Do you are? The other one's in a minute. In a minute. Need a minute. Yes. Okay, I'm listening.
So the first thing you're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
so her head is here,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to put your hand here and put it at target.
I'm going to say target to her. Okay, make it. Target.
And she's going to get out from underneath your legs.
Do you want me to move my legs way down it? No? Okay. Target. Target. Oh, is that what that was?
Yes. She hit your head, right?
Yes, she did. Good girl.
It's hard for me to see where would be. You can put it out there. Target.
Target.
There you go.
Good girl.
And can you reach a little further?
Target.
There you go.
I didn't even say it. I thought it.
Yeah. There you go.
You know what's happening.
So that's how you get her out from and under. Okay. You notice we didn't have to touch her leash. We didn't have to pull her or anything like that.
Yeah.
We used the target as like a navigational skill.
Okay.
So if she were in an interview with a child and the child didn't want her head towards her, Violet, if the child didn't want her head towards them, I could change her position, not by, yanking her around by her collar, but by using a target and changing the direction of how she was going.
I see.
So you're going to do some retrieve things
Okay.
with Violet.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm actually going to take her off leash.
Okay. That's fine with me.
And so if I do it, she's going to retrieve from me.
Okay. So I will do it.
So you're going to.
Is it this one you want me to get?
You're going to put all three of these items out there.
Okay. To my right.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And you're going to tell her to wait.
Okay.
And then I'll proceed from there.
Okay. So 3 items. I've got keys, I've got a phone, and I've got a water bottle. Now I'm moving them to my right.
And put them a little far apart. That's good. Okay. Okay. And
Wait.
wait.
Good girl.
So you're going to tell her to see if I say the cue, she's going to go do it. Look, get it, bring it here.
Violet, look, get it, bring it here.
So let her bring it to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Give her a treat.
Thank you so much.
Do it again.
Look, get it? Bring it here. Yes. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good dog. Okay. Pilot, look, get it, then bring it here.
Big girl. No,
Bring it here.
tell her to give.
Give.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yes. Thank you, Pilot.
She's looking to do more.
Would you like to do some more work?
She does. Wait. Here. Turn. Vi. Stay. I'm going to put this out here. You're going to tell her to look, get it.
Violet, look, get it.
Point to it.
Violet, look, get it.
Bring it here.
Bring it here. Bring it here. Thank you. Thank you, Violet. That's just what I needed. You did so good. Would you like
Yay.
here, sweetheart? There you are. Beautiful lady.
So here's one of the. She won't stop now.
We have to leave. You're a woman on a mission. You were clever folks.
You're going to say, Violet, come.
Violet, come. Thank you.
And tell her to get your leash.
Violet, get your leash. Oh, okay. She did ask for them. Sweetheart, Violet, get your leash. Here. Thank you. Yes.
Good job.
Good job. Oh, did you drop it? Good girl. She is really on now, isn't she?
Whole different ball game.
I see what you mean.
You're going to stand up.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to point. Just tell her, go to bed.
Okay. Violet, go to bed.
I don't know whether she's seen that yet. Violet. Just take a step. Take a step towards the mat.
Violet, go to bed.
So that's a complex cue. That means go to the mat and down.
Yes.
You notice that you didn't have to say that.
No.
That she just went
Yes.
and did the complex cue.
Yes.
So the trainers train that as a cue together. If I do this.
We put her leash back on.
Mm-hmm.
Violet, come.
Yes, good girl.
Thank you. Thank you. How did she know to bring her leash?
Because she's my dog. Because I work on complex cues with her.
Yeah, because she can.
Because she can.
And
Because she
likes
knows.
it too.
Oh, yeah.
Likes the work.
Oh, yeah.
I recognize that in her.
Right?
Mm.
Totally different personality, isn't she?
Yeah.
As soon as she wakes up.
She's awake. I can
Yes, ma'am.
feel her very much. Yes. So my last question for you
Yes, ma'am.
is, oh, thank you, sweetheart. I've got my leash again. Better give another treat.
Yes.
Yes. If I might ask you one last question, we've covered such beautiful ground, and I'm so, so thankful for your generosity of your time and Violet's time, and your generosity of spirit of sharing all the facets of the work that you do. And again, on behalf, actually not again, but on behalf of the community, thank you for the work that you do. It's exquisite work and so, so, so selfless. It is almost, language doesn't do it justice. So thank you so much for your work. My very last question for you, though, is what wisdom would you and Violet like to leave us listeners with?
So every day I make a space for things to be different. And we have the privilege to have people see a way that is different, that can be benefited through the partnership of a professional canine.
Mm.
And so the first piece of the puzzle is to make a space.
Mm.
And in our world, the second piece of a puzzle is to bring more hope into the world, one dog at a time.
I think mission accomplished, and also mission never accomplished.
True enough. Yeah.
Infinite possibility and also already done.
Yes.
Yes. And I, on behalf of the listeners, again, would like to thank you for being here so sincerely.
I feel the same. I thank you for seeing us,
Yes.
because as I'm sure you can tell, it's one of the most important things that I've ever had the privilege. I've wanted to be with animals my entire life and imagine that this evolved, and this was how I was able to express it.
Thank
I
you.
feel so privileged.
Yes. And also thank you for listening to your heart guidance all those years ago that led you all the way to here and all the way into this studio to talk to us and to introduce Violet to us and all the other animals or dogs, canines that you have through their stories. It's just so very powerful.
Thank you.
I wonder for the listener listening at home if they would like to be a part of this, if they would like to contribute, if they would like to know more. What is a meaningful way that they can help?
We have a really great website. So assistancedogsofthewest.org. I know it's long. Assistancedogsofthewest.org. There's ways to donate there. Our 2024 graduation is listed. I encourage anyone and everyone. It's 1 hour start to finish. I can guarantee you it is one of the most hope-filled hour that you might participate in. And the reason why I suggest that is because I think if you see what other people are accomplishing and doing and benefiting through the use of partnership with a canine, I think it really changes the mindset about what I mean, I don't think that we've barely scratched the surface of what is possible.
What an exciting thing to end on. Thank you so much for being here. Sincerely.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Linda Milanesi for joining me today on Wisdom Stripes, and of course, the dear Violet as well. In today's episode, we explored Linda's journey of connecting people with service dogs, her personal experiences, and the lessons she's learned from animals about love, service, and purpose. We also got the wonderful experience of understanding a little bit about the beautiful dog that is Violet. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an update. You can connect with Linda on Instagram @AssistanceDogs or visit assistancedogsofthewest.org to learn more about her work. Thank you for listening to another episode of Wisdom Stripes. I hope you gained a little wisdom today. My name is Meg Tuohey, and this is Wisdom Stripes. Thank you for listening to this episode of Wisdom Stripes. Follow me on @MegTuoheyOfficial and leave a comment and review. I'm looking forward to meeting you here next time on Wisdom Stripes.